Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Executive. And it's Thursday, the 10th of October. I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm the leader of the council and the chair of this committee. That's one of the main decision-making committees of the council. So thank you for joining us. And getting straight into the agenda. First of all, we have apologies from Councillor Lomas this evening. And moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 1 as listed, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? No, nobody's showing any, so we have none. Item number 2 is the minutes of the meeting that was held on 12th of September. Can I see those who are in approval of those minutes? Thank you. So that's unanimous. Those have been accepted. Item number 3 is public participation. And this evening we have no public speakers. So we move on to item number 4, which is the forward plan. Does anybody have any comments on the forward plan, or can we move to approval of the forward plan? Can I see those who are in favour of the forward plan? Thank you. That's approved as well. Thank you very much. So that's unanimous too. And item number 5 is the first item of substantial business. So the item number 5 is granting consent for the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority borrowing powers. So the listing on the original agenda item is incorrect. It is not to do with allowing the council, as in CYC, to have extended borrowing powers. It is purely to do with York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority borrowing powers. So, Bryn, I assume you are going to introduce this paper to us that is detailed in the agenda supplement. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise for the snappily titled report. So members will be conscious that when the Combined Authority was created, it inherited some limited borrowing powers from particularly the Office of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. It also came with some borrowing powers in relation to transport. What is now being proposed by what is the DHCLG is to extend those borrowing powers to the full range of powers that the Combined Authority has at its disposal. In order to be able to do that, DHCLG requires that both of the constituent councils and the Combined Authority consent to the laying of regulations. And in essence, that is what this report is asking for. It is asking that the council delegate that the giving of that consent to the Chief Operating Officer in order that we can submit that to DHCLG when they request it. It's worth noting in the report that because the Combined Authority inherited some borrowing powers and was given some borrowing powers in its original order, there is a level of risk associated with that. That level of risk is considered to be limited and is further limited by the process by which the Combined Authority has to follow the prudential borrowing rules and has to set out any risks associated with decisions in its reports. That would be continued for any future reports under the new borrowing powers, and ultimately those powers would have to be exercised in accordance with the Prudential Code. Debbie can talk far more about that as necessary, but there is a level of assurance for the council that the Combined Authority will not simply go off and start borrowing money for wild projects. It has to be done in accordance with the code and with the agreement of the Combined Authority itself, which is the full body with 5 members. I'm happy to leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryn. Does anybody have any questions at all for Bryn about the paper? No. Mike, sorry, Councillor Pavlovic, please go ahead.
Is this a decision that then has to go off to full council for ratification, or is it just the exec?
No, this is an executive decision only. So once executive grants its consent here or grants its approval, then the Chief Operating Officer can respond immediately once we get a request in from DHCLG.
Councillor Cobain.
Thanks, Chair. And obviously this is a requirement of statute, really, that we do this, otherwise the combined authority can't borrow the funds that it needs to deliver the programmes that it was set up to deliver. Can we just be absolutely clear, though, for the record, what the liabilities are on the local authorities as part of the laying of these regulations?
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so as you may be aware, there is a section within the order which makes plain that the constituent councils are responsible for ensuring that the combined authority can run itself effectively. If there is a danger that that's not going to be the case, then there is a theoretical liability to the constituent councils. The reality with that liability, of course, is that there is somebody in place of the Section 73 officer whose job it is, like our Section 151 officer, to ensure that the combined authority does not place itself in that situation. Again, if you're talking about borrowing, the rules will not allow for an incoming mayor, whether it be now or in 3.5 years' time, to decide they're going to borrow for the next 50 years worth of funding that it's expected to receive in order to spend it on one thing. So that's the level of risk that we run. It exists. It is considered to be low simply because of the processes that already exist within the combined authority.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else want to speak other than I would like to say something? So I think, first of all, on this, it should be noted also that the reason that this came through in a rushed manner, or more rushed than we usually would take with a decision making, is that MHCLG expected and asked us to do this, and they want to put it through the House of Commons imminently. I think by the end of this month, in fact, if I'm correct, October 20.
That was something their original aim. I think they perhaps put it back a week or two, but not much.
Okay, so the time frames is very short, and if we didn't do it now, then the opportunity would be missed. And whilst, of course, there is always some inherent risk in borrowing for any combined authority or local authority, the ability to do that is really important in order to deliver the expectations of our residents and businesses in the region. And not agreeing to this would hamper the ability of the combined authority to deliver on those expectations. So I am in a strong support of this, knowing that the correct decision-making processes and considerations and statutory officers are in place. So I would like to recommend that we go ahead and accept this. And so the recommendations for this paper are at page 2, paragraph 8 in Agenda Supplement 2. So it says there that it is recommended that executive delegates authority to the chief operating officer to agree to the unconditional granting of consent for the laying of regulations granting borrowing powers to the combined authority. The reason for this recommendation is to enable the combined authority to deliver on its key strategic priorities. So I recommend to you that we approve that. So can I see those who are in favour, please? Thank you. So that's unanimously approved. And thank you, everybody, for that. And thank you for the work that's been done on this as well. So agenda item number 6 is the community dementia model. And we have Sarah Story, who is our Corporate Director of Adult Social Care and Integration. Did I get that right? I always get it wrong. Sorry. Eventually I will get it right. Right, Sarah. And sorry, I've forgotten your name that's sitting along there as well. Please introduce yourself.
In adult social care.
And welcome, Katie. Apologies for that. Thank you. So, Sarah, are you going to start off?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Katie's kindly joined me just in case there are any specific questions about the detail that I've not got on the tip of my tongue. So thanks for receiving this report. This is to request approval of the commission of the new community dementia model. for 3 years with an option to extend. And this is a joint piece of work, a joint commissioning approach with the Integrated Care Board, who will actually act as the lead commissioner for this service. So councillors, I'm sure, will be aware these services do meet some statutory duties, because we do have requirements to support people through information, advice and prevention. And in terms of the support to people with dementia, there's listed within the report some of the types of support that people will be able to access through these services. So they're really important services to make sure that we can continue to support people to live as independently as possible for as long as possible. And of course, the carers of people with dementia, which are included in some of the services that brought with us. That's probably all I need to say at this stage, assuming that everybody's read the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Would anybody like to ask any questions, make any comments on this paper? Councillor Eyre, would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, I'll be brief, and thanks to officers for bringing the paper, and thanks to Katie, who I've been talking to extensively over the last 2 days, who's been incredibly helpful in working through some of these things. I think one of the problems with this paper, and I'll go into it in more detail on the later paper, is the problem here is the paper doesn't really unpick where the funding is in terms of what the current situation is regarding funding and what the proposal is. So it's clear what the new model is, but we're not really sure what the existing spend on that particular area is, and we've tried to dig into it, and it's particularly difficult. And that is concerning when you look at paragraph 19 of the paper, which is quite clear. I think I've not seen something quite stark as this, that it's difficult to assess whether this delivers the duty at the minimum level. And there also is then a following paragraph that suggests that perhaps because we're paying slightly more than the ICB, that will cover it. But that should be flagging a few warning signs for all of us if we're saying that we're not fully convinced in this paper that we're delivering the duty at the minimum level. I think the second point I would make around this is obviously welcome the work with the ICB. We're going to have to do a lot more close working with the ICB. This does demonstrate a shift towards more of a diverse delivery that we've had in the past to the sort of the lead provider model that we're saying. I think multi-agency provision does have its advantages. The paper doesn't go into detail about why the decision has been taken to move from a more multi-agency approach to that central agency approach. And I would certainly appreciate the views of the exec member on what she thinks the pros and cons are of having more diverse delivery or more single provider led one.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Katie, Sarah, would you like to answer on the paragraph 19 question? I think if you can, please. Thank you.
So we'd be very happy to set up a separate briefing, Councillor, just to go through the details of the finances for the overall contracts. Obviously, this is a specific decision today about this specific contract, but we can certainly arrange that briefing if that would be helpful. I know you've been trying to get the detail by email, which isn't always useful. I think one of the reasons it's very difficult for us to assess whether we're delivering duties at minimum level in terms of prevention and information advice is because actually, although the Care Act requires us to offer information, advice and prevention, it's actually silent on what those minimum standards would be. And actually, that's a kind of factor of the Care Act throughout most of it. Actually, it doesn't tell us timescales for assessment. It doesn't say these are the things that you specifically must provide and at this standard, at this level and to this many people. So it is a judgment in terms of sufficiency and what support we're able to offer to people to ensure that we're keeping people as independent as we can. And I guess the evidence of that is then when we take a look at the actual overall numbers of people that we do support with care packages, for example, and the numbers of carers who receive support. So there are links between this paper and some previous papers that we brought to executives. So we did obviously recommission the carers services, we brought the advocacy services contract, and all of these services do sit in that prevention, information and advice space. So although it is a statutory duty, actually there's nothing to tell us exactly what we must deliver or what each council must deliver. And I think probably that's important because obviously every area is different and every council is different and the needs of people in those communities are different as well. So what we need to do is understand the unique needs of our population and the needs of individuals when they come to us for support. I don't know if that's at all helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Katie, do you want to add anything at all? No, you're okay. Okay. Councillor Stills-Walshaw, would you like to speak then? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this this report to approve the new commissioning with 3 years plus the potential of 2. Now, this is a partnership model with the council, and the ICB are the lead commissioner within this, and the model's designed to reduce the overlaps and improve the communication throughout the organisations. The report's recommendations seek to embed the priorities of the dementia strategy, and the new service will deliver pre and post diagnosis support for families, carers, helpline support, wellbeing cafes, and so many more things within that. If it's not commissioned, then we do risk missing opportunities for early intervention within this to support people with at risk with or at risk of living with dementia, and also escalating care costs if this isn't implemented. We'd also be increasing the risk of already stretched community services. York has moved to an asset-based community model, which is benefiting residents and their family, as well as the carers and staff who are supporting them. And the Health Watch report, the 2023 one, listening to people with dementia, is benefiting residents and staff as well as supporting them and their families. So commissioning this model alongside the ICB is an important action closely linked to the council plan objective to deliver the dementia strategy. And not only is this about the right support at the right time for everyone affected, including their families and carers, it's about greater understanding for everyone about the impact that dementia has on their lives. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stills-Walshaw, and I think it's really important to accentuate also that this is a partnership working between the ICB and the council, and I am really pleased to see that this is becoming more and more ingrained and accepted within our ways of working, because in my view it's the only way that we can deliver effective services that really speak to the needs, the care needs, and also the health needs of our population, no matter what stage of their life they're at. And I really want to thank officers for all of the time and effort that has gone into building these relationships. It's tremendously important for us and will become more so over time too. So on that note, then we are looking at the recommendations at paragraph 20, which is on page 23. And we are asked to agree the funding to continue CYC's contribution to funding the new community dementia model for a period of 3 years, with an option to extend for a further 2 years, noting that the contract will be procured by the ICB with CYC as a partner, and through a lead provider model in engagement with the market, and to delegate to the corporate director of adult social care and integration, in consultation with head of procurement and the director of governance, the authority to enter into an agreement with the ICB for the provision of the funding, and to agree to the award of the resulting contract for the community dementia model service by the ICB. So please, can I see those who are in favour of that recommendation? Thank you, everybody. That's unanimously approved, and I think that's a great decision. So please go forward and go ahead with those proposals. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us on that. So the next item, so Sarah and Katie are going to stay in place for that. Item number 7 is the community contracts to support early intervention and prevention in adult social care. So Sarah, do you want to start? Thank you.
Thank you. So this is to request approval for the decision to for us to procure 2 services, sort of quite a tender process for 2 services, which is the advice and information service and the supporting independence service. And again, these are really important parts of our information, advice and prevention offer that help to keep people independent for as long as possible. And in terms of the support that's offered to people, I think some of the engagement that's been undertaken and the responses from consultation really evidence how much people value some of those services. So again, it's probably a really similar note in terms of my answer to Councillor's question previously. The level of support that we offer in this space is really down to our assessment and understanding of what's needed. And we do think these are really important services, and we do believe that if they weren't in place, then people's needs would increase as a result. We would be, putting more funded support in place for people in the short and the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Ask any questions? Councillor Eyre, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think in the nicest possible way. I don't welcome this paper at all. I think it's badged as commissioning, but this isn't about commissioning. This is a paper outlining cuts. This is a paper that outlines the cuts that you agreed in ASC 05 at the budget of £350,000 to some of the most important services. Having looked at the paper, looked at the details and gone back and forward, and there's lots of numbers being thrown around, there is between £500,000 and £1 million of really essential early intervention contracts ended in this particular paper. They're all listed on that paper. Some of them have been recommissioned, some of them aren't. The figures I've been provided and officers have confirmed that actually the saving that was outlined at the budget has actually been overachieved in this paper. So not only are you delivering savings that we've always opposed, that we don't believe are necessary, you're delivering more than is actually required to balance the budget. Again, I would ask the exec member to outline her understanding of what this community contract budget was in 23-24, what it reduced to in 24-25, and if she can outline what that total budget will be in 25-26. The options are not correct in the paper. The options are between commissioning this service and not commissioning this service. It doesn't actually include the third option, which is maintaining the status quo and retendering all of those contracts that are listed in Annex 1. I know, and the executive member for finance isn't here, so I was predicting her to tell it, but I'm sure somebody else will tell me that these cuts are absolutely necessary. The cuts to Age UK, the cuts to Mind are all absolutely necessary because of the national picture. I would just reflect on that and say that isn't actually true. And it's worth reflecting, with today being World Mental Health Day, if, for example, you had chosen to freeze the head of comms recruitment for 12 months, that contract with Mind could have continued for another year. If you had delivered the senior management restructure savings, none of these £360,000 worth of cuts to the voluntary sector, to early intervention services would be necessary. So go out to tender the services, but be honest with the public. This is not £240,000 of new money. This is £240,000 replacing 800 to £1 million worth of contracts that are ending.
Thank you for that, Councillor Eyre, and I'm not sure that the officers would agree with you on that and your assessment that this isn't about recontracting, which it is. I don't know whether Katie, if you or Sarah, if you want to add anything on the technical detail at all. Thank you.
I think in terms of the numbers, Councillor Eyre, I really would repeat the offer to set up a separate briefing, because we absolutely haven't made £1 million worth of cuts to community services. That absolutely isn't the case. The saving that was agreed by full council prior to the start of the financial year through the budget setting process, I believe it was 265. And yeah, 75 for next year, and we haven't overachieved on those savings. So I think we'd be really happy to prepare a briefing for Councillor Steels-Warshaw and separately for yourselves so that we can go through those figures. And although some contracts have come to an end, we have commissioned some new services, and there have been some increases to some of those contracts. So, for example, the carers service that we mentioned previously. So yeah, really happy to go through the numbers on some of that, so we can double check and make sure that we've got all the I's dotted. And I'm sure Debbie will assist us with that if we've got any difficulty in presenting the data. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, and I would like to reiterate that I absolutely do not recognise your claim that we are over delivering on the savings. That is not what we are doing. We are making cuts within the council budget that have been outlined publicly and very honestly time and time again. £10 million per year for 4 years in order to make the budget balance, which is our responsibility. And every service is affected by this. This is not easy. There are no good answers anymore. And so what we have gone through together is an assessment of where duplication lies, whether that's within services offered within the council, within health, and between the council and health, or out in the community, and had to make assessments as to how we can continue to deliver on those statutory services to make sure that our focus is on the areas that they need to be, and they are difficult answers around that, and they will continue to be. This won't go away, and as we have said to you before, we are in the game of balancing a budget in a responsible way, and we will not spend one-off money or reserves to fill that gap within our agreed budget at full council, which is exactly what we have done. So, Councillor Stills-Walshaw, would you like to speak on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and many thanks to officers for this report and the work that has gone into bringing it to this stage for approval. Tendering for these services reflects our council plan commitment to health wellbeing, and particular being a health generating city for all our residents, no matter what their age. In York, over the next 20-year period to 2040, there'll be an increase of around 1/3 of people needing care. And obviously within that, then those people providing care and people living with dementia will increase by around 50%. This is an increase of an ageing population that will continue to challenge this already stretched system. The 10-year joint health and wellbeing strategy sets out the 10 big goals, and one of this is highlights keeping people in their home in a home first model, which supports and recognises the benefits of keeping people in their own homes with the support of the communities around them that they want. Not having these services risks adding costly pressure to services already doing their very, very best to address the needs of adult residents. Commissioning services that people need within their communities at the earliest stage is absolutely the right approach for the council, and it supports people to maintain independence for as long as possible and delays those needs for the more significant and costly care interventions from the adult social care services. I'm satisfied that the commissioning of these services fulfills the council's Care Act responsibilities, and urge executive colleagues to approve the recommendations as a positive step forwards towards independent. On contracts that we have brought forward the commissioning of valued contracts to keep that people and services really want, and the support networks want, to keep people out of longer term costly care. Previous contracts were continually rolled over without questioning any resource limitation and whether these were best meeting the needs. I believe that this does best meet the needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stills-Walshaw, and I couldn't agree more. Finally getting to grips with our contracts. I know Katie and your team have worked tremendously hard on this to understand what we need to commission, making sure that it delivers for the people who need services and delivers value for money for the taxpayer is really important. And recommissioning, bringing costs back into line with the budget, delivers for everybody at the end of the day, and it's tremendously important. So thank you for that. So I also recommend that we approve these recommendations, which you'll find on page 88 at paragraphs 11 and 12. And the first one at paragraph 11 is to approve the approach to commission through a competitive tendered process the following two services for a period of 3 + 2 years. So that's the advice and information service with a value of £100,000 per annum, and B, supporting independent service with a value of £127,000 per annum. And then the second recommendation at paragraph 12 is to delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adult Services and Integration in consultation with Head of Procurement and the Director of Governance to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting contracts. So please, can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations? Thank you. So those are unanimously approved as well. Thank you very much. And thank you to your team for all the work that has been done on this and continues to be done on it. So thank you for everything. Our next item is item number 8, which is within the agenda item pack number 1, I believe. Yes, so that is the York Youth Justice Service plan. And we have Martin Kelly here, and please can you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, Sarah Orton.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for joining us this evening. Martin, are you going to introduce this? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So what you have in front of you is the annual Youth Justice Plan. The local authority has a statutory duty to submit an annual Youth Justice Plan relating to the provision of youth justice in York to the National Youth Justice Panel. It is a requirement that the plan is submitted to full council primarily for information. Prior to writing the plan, the National Youth Justice Board issued guidance and set a really tight deadline for its submission to the board. This doesn't allow sufficient time for the report to go through council before its submission nationally. So the report has been submitted nationally. However, there is opportunity should members wish to see any amendments to this report, sorry, to the plan itself, for us to resubmit a further version to Youth Justice Board. Sarah will briefly talk through the work that the Youth Justice Service in relation to the plan.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Sarah.
Been here 2 minutes and I'm already breaking everything. Apologies for that. So the Youth Justice Service Plan it's been something we've had to create for a very, very long period of time. The Crime and Disorder Act of 1998 set out youth justice services, which used to be youth offending teams, were created within local authority. So we've got around 24 years worth of writing plans really for this purpose. It's changed now that it does have to come through full council. Previously, it used to sit with the chair of the management board, but things have moved on within the Youth Justice Board. So our service is accountable to the management board, and they've contributed to, and also they've approved this plan prior to it going through all the other meetings. By ensuring that the management board have contribution to the plan, it makes sure that the plan is multi-agency, because our board is made up of various different organisations, and writing the plan enables the board to review our performance and developments over a single year period, because it is an annual plan that we have to create. So the plan is also part of our funding from the Youth Justice Board. The Youth Justice Service receives funding from the Youth Justice Board, so it is also an agreement of that. So as Martin was saying, the plan was submitted to the Youth Justice Board in June 2024, which was required. The Youth Justice Board don't release the guidance until the final hour, and it doesn't give us time to write the plan for their submission date, but also get it through to the full council, which is why it's had to be submitted already. But as Martin has said, we can make changes if necessary. It's not being published at this point by the Youth Justice Board. So just about the service, we were inspected last in September 2022 by HMIP, and we're found to be an outstanding service, which is really positive for York. I feel this plan reflects the work that the service have done, and I think it's just a great place for showcasing everything that we do. The plan outlines our vision for the future and also how we align with partners and other services within the city. The plan considers our previous priorities from the past year, but also our progress on achieving these, which is very highly positive. It shows everything that the service is doing, and I think for me, the plan really highlights the innovative practice that's going on within the service. So the plan itself, writing the plan, is very time consuming, but what it actually provides us with is really highly beneficial. It also shows our priorities for the coming year and how we aim to achieve these priorities that we're setting. It's a transparent plan. It outlines funding streams, statistics relating to offending within the city, and also very much our plan for the forthcoming year. So as I sort of said, we're really proud of the work undertaken in York, and we hope that the plan reflects it when people are reading it. We hope you can really sort of get a feel for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, and I'd like to echo your thoughts. So it's a fantastic piece of work, and you know, you are an excellent service, and I know everybody is tremendously committed and works tremendously hard. So thank you for everything that you're doing on that. Would anybody else like to speak on this item? No, Councillor Webb, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just an opportunity to thank Sarah and all the team for the work they're doing. Yeah, this report takes a funny circuitous route to eventually get to full council, doesn't it? But I think it's important to remember the team. You know, it's made up of youth justice practitioners, social workers, probation officers, police officers, but importantly, speech and language provision, turnaround staff, trauma-informed practice is essential for what it does. York is a place where we traditionally have very low numbers of children and young people who will eventually end up in custody and things like that. But part of that is because of the good work that the team is doing, and that's really, really important. I'm particularly happy about the focus on care experience young people, because unfortunately we know that they are overly represented in the criminal justice system nationally. I think any work we can do to support our young people is so important. And this plan it's child focused, it's child first, as it says, and it takes account of child voice as well. So it's a really impressive piece of work. Thank you for your work on it. And as it says in the document, I recommend that it's commended to full council for approval, as per the weird rules that govern this. But thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Yeah, no, I'd like to echo that. And so I just would like to draw your attention, everybody, to the recommendation, which is on page 20 of Agenda Pack Supplement 1 at paragraph 10. The recommendation is to commend the Youth Justice Plan to full council for approval. And can I see executive members in favour of us doing that, please? So that's everybody is in favour. That's approved unanimously as well. And Sarah, Martin, please go back to the team. Thank everybody for everything they're doing, and please keep the good work up. Thank you, and thanks for joining us this evening. Thank you. Right, so back to the original agenda. I believe we are at the end of our substantive items. I will just check. So for agenda item number 9 is urgent business, of which we have none. And so I bring the meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.